Something just happened on my computer. It's at 3 feet.
That is right.
This one.
I want to get it off.
Oh, it is off right away. All right. Mr. L needs to look at this one. It's off right away.
Okay.
They got plenty over there.
I was gonna say, we can take, well, that, Chief and I can share. one.
Yeah,
Brian's
Well, my
not coming.
computer, there we go. I don't know what it's doing. I'm trying to pull my,
There's plenty around.
What do you need?
well, my computer is having some issues. It's like not, there we go.
Hi, Miss Brady.
Oh, there's Brian.
Wow, look at that.
Well, Rick's not coming in tonight. He's home.
Well, if he wants to vote, he has to be here.
Huh?
To vote, he has to be here.
About ready to
So-
get started?
On Friday, it was crazy because
Hi,
I
Brian.
didn't get the stuff out before Barb left, so I sent out Zoom information, so that maybe was true of him.
Oh, no, we're
So,
here all the
thanks, sir.
time
So
now.
we can. It's Rick.
Are you gonna say anything to me?
Yeah. Hey, by the way, when we came back to in-person meetings, I needed a notebook, so I grabbed one of your good ones in case you're missing one from inventory. I grabbed it from my
This
notes
is when I'm going to write after I retire, I'm gonna write a book.
because
You can't make me crap up.
at home, I had been just doing the notes
Uh-huh.
on my stuff, but I can't do that and run
Okay.
this, so.
Mayor, I know we're supposed to be getting started. Can I call and let the officer know? I'm gonna have to meet after I finish.
Yeah.
She's gonna be here later.
Yeah,
He's
he,
just on his way, is it Officer Holmes?
I don't know. Did
He's tied up
Mayor
right
tell
now.
you what happened?
Yes, but Officer Holmes just got tied up in a big,
Okay,
so if he was gonna meet you, I know he's not, but the chief is on his way.
okay,
someone will be here.
all right.
You're fine.
And Brian, you are streaming and recording here and online.
All right, so we can get the service committee started September 22nd at about 6:01 or so. Looks like we'll do a roll call. I'm here.
Oh, I can roll
Randy's
call
here.
it. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead for the roll call, Wood.
You're fine, honey.
What?
Rick,
There's Rick here.
are you gonna stay there for everything, Rick?
Yeah, I'm not, I'm in North Carolina.
Well, that's a
Okay.
little hard for you to come into the council room then.
I won't be able to make it before the end of the meeting.
All right, gotcha.
So I guess we'll do a roll call.
Okay. Cosgrave,
Present.
McCreary,
Present.
Foreman,
Present.
All right, we're all here. Also in attendance, we've got the mayor, the VA, Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Hankinson, Keller, and we have a visitor.
We have a visitor. We'll get two Brian's on this.
Brian.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So
You have to eat your minutes. I'll let Mr. Mock go.
I'll entertain a motion to accept prior meeting minutes.
Foreman so moves.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion made by Foreman, seconded by McCreary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. File with minutes.
You need
So
visitors?
we've got visitors, so we want to,
We didn't, if you guys remember at council, Terry had brought up about development of a street, that Mr. Mock has someone interested in some properties, and the development of the street. Terry talked with him about that, and I think he has a question. I think it's something we should definitely entertain. He's going to ask us with regards to regulations for that. But anyways, Terry went ahead and extended invitation so he can kind of explain the situation. But I think what he has is definitely something we need to entertain. But we wanted to give him the opportunity. So we didn't want him on the agenda so that in case it took more than 5 minutes per our rules, we could give him more time. So if you want to step up to the podium and
Okay. For most of you, you already know me, but the ones that don't, my name is Jerry Mock, and I own property over off of Romulus Street behind the Bob's oil can. I purchased that property several years ago. That's where we started a company, and then we relocated out on Route 37. There's about an acre and a half of property back there that I own, and there are some people that are very interested in purchasing it. I've been talking to Terry. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. Maybe Terry's got more insight on that, but they're very interested in it. And some of you already know the story. I'm not going to go into a real lengthy explanation here, but we started over there. I own where the Bob's oil can is. I sold that lot off. And the rest of the property I was able to get to by AKA Front Street. And then with the administration here, my engineer found out that Baltimore didn't own Front Street. It is the railroad right of way. So they closed that, and then that now landlocked my property. The only other option I have, from what I'm being told, is to improve Romulus Street down to my property line, which is 165 feet. I just measured it the other day. I'm not opposed to paving that, but like I told Terry, the last prior administrator, village administration, they wanted me to improve it to ODOT specs. They wanted curbs and gutters and sidewalks. Well, none of Romulus Street has that. And it just made it impossible to actually go ahead and improve it in that condition. So what I'm willing to say is, if you let me pave that 165 feet, I'll pave it at my cost, and that will give these potential buyers access to those lots and acreage there. I've got the means to pave it. I worked for a paving company for years. I've worked for aggregate operations for years. I'm not gonna go in there and just, take advantage of it and do it. I'm gonna do it right. And we can have that paved. One thing I would like to bring out, and I've got a few pictures here, you can pass them out. There's really been a precedent set on this AK extension of Romulus Street. And there's already a portion of that is stoned by the gentleman that lives off of just the left of or the right of Romulus Street. So he's got another 50 feet already taken care of down there just in stone. But my proposal is to pave it. But we're on a timeline of doing this year because I've been in the asphalt business for 30 plus years. The asphalt plants are going to be shutting down here probably the first or middle of November, and they won't be operating again until spring. So if I have an ability to do it, I want to do it, pretty soon. So that, anybody got any questions on this or concerns or?
And I think the issue is our subdivision regs say when we develop a road, we have to use ODOT standards.
Not
So-
ODOT, we have
Or
standards.
there are standards, but they follow ODOT and,
Columbus mainly, it's a Columbus
yeah.
standard drawing, but it is expensive.
And so, and Terry looked earlier that of all, that would require a 26-foot wide road. And we've got, what, 5% of our roads are 26 feet wide?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
measured Romulus and I'm not talking at the intersection, I'm talking the roadway on down. It's 19 feet
Yeah.
wide.
right,
And so I don't know if the roadway needs to go through planning or zoning or BZA or something, because we're doing this, but I think council can grant that special permission. There's everyone here tonight, and it seemed like a service issue, which is why I said, let's have them come to service, because it's also early, and that way we could get this done. And then if council is going, if you guys agree to do this, then we can have Jeff draft up whatever needs to be drafted up. But that way Jerry could at least start talking with Terry about what specifications there will have to be, the width and stuff like that and stuff, so that they can get started this year. So that's kind of the issue there. And then obviously his timeline, because we know they're shutting down.
And I'm not sure of what business is going in there, but there is sewer and water from the village on these lots. So, they have the ability to tap into them,
So that we mixed residential,
That's what I'm
commercial
gonna-
zoned.
currently it's zoned general business. Currently, it's what the zoning is general business.
This was the one we looked at the last council
Yeah,
meeting up on
right.
the screen and the map and tried to figure out.
Which means residential units aren't allowed on there unless there is a variance granted.
Yeah.
Now, the phone calls that I've taken about the property is that most people are interested in like storage units or something like that, which, it is beyond, it is back into quote unquote a field, but I did get one residential question, but he wanted to put a trailer there. Manufactured home. I said no. So I had Tim look at the area today because my concern is curbs are usually for stormwater, which we're doing a lot with. He is confident that even if we didn't require curbs there in this area, we would not have a stormwater issue because of the lay of the land.
The elevation there. it's higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had him review it today. We went over, looked at our drawings and stuff, and he believes that not having the curbs is not going to be a detriment to us. So. what's that?
Resident, it's cheap.
Chief.
Oh,
So anyway, so the question for service, and since everyone else is here, is, we invited Jerry to answer any questions might have about doing this so that we could make some beneficial use of that lot.
So how far are you gonna run along the street? All the way to the tracks or?
I don't,
No, my property
can
is
you pull it up?
165 feet from this picture here shows you a little bit of asphalt paving.
Yeah, I got
And from that part there to about the high grass in the back is 165 feet.
So
That is
from the
my
end of that
property.
gravel to the lot line.
Lot line, yeah. Yeah, that lot, or that road doesn't continue on to where AKA Front Street was.
So our zoning rules and regulations say a property has to have access via a paved road, okay? So what would have to happen is that Mr. Moss or whoever purchased this would have to combine those lots into one so that the access coming off of North Romulus into the front of the first lot would be the access. I mean, there's no sense in going all the way through to the street
tracks.
because it's private
Yeah, right.
and you can't use it anyhow.
So you're talking like ending the road right about here, Jerry?
Jerry, right there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Right
that
about
tree line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it these two lots we're speaking
Oh, there's
of?
more than two.
Well,
These
there,
are-
remember, there's
Here,
one
here,
here,
and then
this
one
parcel.
here, and then one back here.
Okay, because I
Well,
remember we looked at
there's
that.
two lots in the,
It's a total of
call it
three.
the mowed grass, dead
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah,
Then it runs behind
Right.
the house on East Rome Street, right above your, yeah, right there. It runs clear back,
Yeah,
drop down a little bit, clear back into there.
wow.
Right.
And then it runs from,
Almost to the creek?
yeah, it runs along the railroad track, clear back almost to Warren Street. Or what is that?
Water.
Water Street, yeah.
Oh,
There's four different.
But in order for him to be able to sell that, the buyers have to have a way to get there.
right.
Yeah.
Once they buy it, then they
That's gonna
develop
be a
it
nice
further from
property.
there.
So are they divided into two lots or more, or is it just one lot?
It's
Uh,
like four.
There's four lots, but the one that's parallel to the railroad tracks, you're not gonna do anything with, because it takes a lot of fill.
So are the other two lots, are you gonna combine them into one?
I could do that, yeah.
He would have to do that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there is no access to the back lot. The front
Unless
lot
he went
would
further
be,
down, then split them the other way.
well, yeah, but.
Right, I mean, so basically, Bob, what he's saying here is there's two lots
Right.
right here,
Mhm.
and in order for this lot right here to be
Mm.
usable, it needs to have road access. So your option is either running the road all the way to here, which is
Right.
just kind of dumb,
Or combine them into.
or combine
into
them.
one. Uh-huh.
And Jerry wouldn't necessarily have to do that. Who buys the lots to build
Right.
something there would have to do
If
that.
they would want all four parcels into one lot, I could even do that.
Yeah.
Or they could.
Is he interested in, or whoever's buying them, they interested in buying all of them?
Yeah, they're listed, all of them is listed. So.
It is one of the few areas that we have in the village that is landlocked. You know, and it does present an issue because, you know, we do have nothing there, so we have a lot of weeds and grass and et cetera. It would be nice to be able to let a business come in there and,
But the rate of success there would be, like the chance of it being successful back in there would be challenging.
But that's not our concern. Our concern is
Right,
Jerry wants to
right.
sell it, and we need a road back there. so
See
we
those
can-
two parcels that he's got it on now, those were facing Front Street. And then I changed them when the village shut down Front Street, closed it.
So we got these two here and then this and back in here.
Right.
Joining all of that, it seems like that street, the 165 paved feet,
would be a good
would
access.
provide what
Mhm.
is necessary.
It just goes to right there.
Mhm.
And I guess based on that, it would kind of need to be all three because it goes into this parcel and doesn't hit this one and this one. But that, again, the question here is, are we okay not making them make the road 26 feet wide with curbs and gutters
And sidewalks.
and sidewalks?
I mean, hearing what you just stated in terms of the runoff water, I think that sidewalks is another question, but I think in terms of not having storm.
I don't think there needs to be any storms. and
Yeah, I don't think there's any
gutters.
issue with the water. I think the
Yeah,
sidewalks,
okay.
but again, it's gonna be private property. So I don't see where you would need sidewalks. There are no sidewalks over there, but it's
So
gonna
I
be
guess,
private.
I guess that's the issue then on the table. Again, what the mayor said. Can we go ahead and get this developed without the curbs and sidewalks?
I see no problem with that. There is no other sidewalks
Correct.
on
And
the list.
I see no problem. It's also gonna go back to one residential area.
Yeah, I would say, I would encourage, to go ahead and proceed. Listen to council.
Well,
What
what,
are you talking about road width then?
19?
I say if we
It is,
keep the same road width as Romulus is now,
And that is.
Once it's paved,
19.
once it's paved, I would turn it over to you guys, you
We
know,
would
it's
take
already
care of
yours
it.
anyway.
and
Yeah.
that would be 19 feet.
Okay,
And
That
that
would be
is
what?
probably 19, did you say? The width of Romulus.
The
currently.
Romulus back in, not the intersection, is 19 feet wide.
Yeah.
I can't see two-lane traffic running back in there, but that's what Romulus
Yeah.
is.
But
Or if
that
there
is-
are two, it's not going to be heavy in a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the width of most of our streets.
Mhm. I mean, for continuity, that. sounds
Makes
like
sense.
That totally makes sense for that specific area.
So what, in order for him to get started, I think what would have to happen, someone on service should make a motion to basically permit, a development of that road outside of our standards, to not include sidewalks or gutters, and to be approximately 19 feet wide. And then obviously correspond with Terry about I don't know if we have any aggregate requirements for that. That shouldn't be a
I'll have you work
problem,
with
but,
Terry.
but,
There's
but,
plenty aggregate on that. In
Right.
fact, I've tailgated some on that. We've been using that to get into mow and everything.
but as far
It all
as,
depends how deep it is too.
right, as far
It
as,
has to be dug out so deep, it has to be certain.
Right. And
Right,
I'll
to-
have Tim work with Mr. Mott.
What's
But-
the depth of the existing gravel, the aggregate that's already been laid by the
You talk on
residents
the
up
lot
front there?
itself?
No, the residents there that's going to, so there's already that
This temporary driveway. or it's-
Temporary
Yeah, I'll
driveway,
bet there's 8 inches. of
easement,
stone.
or whatever you want to call
When
it.
I purchased that,
Oh,
all those, the 2 lots
Yeah.
is what I purchased, and they were dilapidated homes on them. I demoed them.
Mhm.
Then up where Bob's oil can was, there was a house that burnt years ago, and the only thing in there was a foundation, and I bought it. Then we started in there, and then when Front Street shut down, I sold the Front Street, or it was, I think that was 600 Main Street was the address on that.
Cause this is the part, so this is just gonna go further back, so.
Right.
Yeah. Mayor, I'd like to move to, I guess, bypass the current Ohio standards, so there's no need for sidewalks or the storm waterways. And
in road width,
pursue that. And a
Romulus
19
Street,
foot
the one that I
roadway to continue
would
the,
like to be able to pave, that was just a gravel alley to get out the Romulus Street to Front Street years ago.
did I miss any details?
So I'll second that motion.
May I change your standards to Village of Baltimore standards instead
Yes.
of Ohio?
Yes.
Thank you,
And I second that.
thank you.
I'll take that, but we need to take it.
well, any other discussion?
Yeah, is there any other, Rick, do you have any questions? I don't know
No,
if
I'm all for this.
you- All right. So I guess we'll vote on it and
Okay.
want to call a roll
Mhm.
for it?
Cosgrave,
Yes,
McCreary,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right, and the rest of council seems to be on board too, so it shouldn't be a problem once it goes through council
Okay.
in a couple hours. So just get with Terry tomorrow to finalize all the details
That'll
and,
be fine.
and cool.
Okay, well, I appreciate
Hopefully
it.
it works out.
And, hopefully they bring some business to Baltimore.
perfect.
Thank you. If you got any other questions, Mary's got my number.
All right, thank you,
Bye
Jerry.
for now. Thank you.
All right,
All right, back from visitors, so we'll go on to the goals.
So most of the goals you've seen, we have, I'll run through them real quick. Maple Street is finished, the ground storage tank, we are still going to do that, it'd be this fall. We are awaiting the arrival of the meter for the high school, because we are, again, concerned with that one. The Brown Coomer Fremont Loop water line went out to bid September 24th. And I talked to B3 today. They've had 2 people ask questions about it, so maybe we'll get some good bids on this. Still working with BSI on the PLC backup and also the GST ground storage tank upgrade. Park Street water line is down, and then the meter upgrade, again, we're we'll just pull that right into item number 3, because we, as you see the projects going forward, we're gonna purchase more meters. We had to move the North Boswell water line because of material costs to a 2022 project, but now we may even extend that further. The brine tank, we are completing yet this year, as well as the hydrant storage connection. So we're doing pretty good on our projected projects for water. So wastewater, we have a couple of projects that are on hold, and that includes extending the basin. All the train pumps have been rebuilt. We will be, by the end of this year, have the recirculation pumps rebuilt and the VFDs also completed. We are moving the biotank diffusers into a 2022 project, as well as we're talking getting new meters for the wastewater treatment plant and radio reads to send the flow readings from Southeast plant to the plant. What's happening now is that we're taking the flows, the overall total of flows, subtracting what we have from company, and then the Southeast are being calculated after that. So it's not an exact flow. And I think we really need to know the exact flow. So we're going to put a meter in there. So, and then we did get our spare compactor and motor and gearboxes. And the plant lift station pump is done, and the screen room fans are also done. So we're doing pretty good, even though we had to push some out just because we had some added expenses we didn't count on. Street paving, as you know, that whole scenario, we only got Maple, Hyde, Boswell, and Johnson done this year, but we're extending all of those projects to 2022. Land and buildings, the only thing that we had left there was the tower roof on the old firehouse. And today, the gentleman was up there and discovered that the floor that holds the bell up there, because we really do have a bell up there, is rotten. So it's going to take about $500 to stabilize that floor. So I went ahead and improved it. So that will be completed here in a couple weeks. We moved the mausoleum roof repair and the stained glass window over to the 22 projects you'll see as we go through the projects. And we purchased our support truck. So basically that's where we're at right now.
All right.
That's the village department.
Yep. So we've got reports from the village departments.
Mhm. You want to talk about Park and Rec Board now?
Sure.
Okay. So in your packet, you have, the mayor puts it up a survey monkey of items for the pool. The Park and Rec Board met, just met last week, but the month before that, and wanted to have a survey done of exactly what people want to see at the pool, instead of the committee deciding maybe this is what they want to see, what do they really want to see. So I created this survey monkey, which by the way was my first one, came out pretty good. And we have, as of today, almost 40 people have replied. And I think that's great. This is a survey that people volunteered to take. So as we went through this and as I shared with the Park and Rec Board, what I like about it is we have occasional visitors, as you can see from the first slide. And then if you roll it down. The other thing I wanted to know, which I think is very important to this council, is what was their experience. And the 3 new ones that I have that aren't up here yet, because it's an old results, all thought their experience this year was good, which is great compared to the other years that we've went through.
And there's
So,
no pours up here, but was pour an option they could
No.
select?
no, fair. There's only 2, so we're good.
So, no. So our options on the Survey Monkey were fair, average, and good.
Mhm.
We didn't ask anybody if their
No, I
experience
didn't.
was poor.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on. This is my first survey, so
No,
I'm
we're
not
good.
saying I'm perfect here,
Well,
guys.
I would go back to that one. If you add them all up, it's like maybe 3 people didn't answer that question.
Oh, yeah, there were some people that,
So that they might have thought that was poor, because they didn't want to give it a positive.
Right.
They want to give it a negative. So
oh, okay.
I don't know, but not everybody answered that question, so.
I'm learning. So, and then we asked them what areas, and we gave them some suggestions, would they like to see improvements, and most of them answered the shaded areas. The second one to come in was food options, and that one's gonna be a little hard for us. We have to talk more in committee, but the shaded area is that we have had someone step up who said they would be willing to take whatever came from this survey and use it with grant money to pay for it. So when you look at the projects that we're going to go through, you'll see none of these projects are figured into our current budget because I believe it'll be done through grants.
Next.
And these are just some of the comments. And as you can see, there are a lot of comments about the lifeguards, which kind of took me back because I will tell you, I've been here 5 years and I thought this was the best it was ever. So it bothered me a little bit, but we will sit down and we will look through this and see what we can do to make it better next year. Obviously, there was not a good first impression with the lifeguards. The other thing that we had is we did have some issues at the pool where we had to end up having officer presence a couple times during the day, and that bothered me a little bit too. So I'm taking all of the stuff from here and not just all of the comments from here and not just what do you want to see. We'll work on it. The next question didn't come out very good. I'm sorry. I was looking, I had other options and then and I must have pushed the button and said, okay, when the survey went out. But we were looking for what kind of areas they think they want to see, and they really just, maybe this is even a valid question because I didn't ask it right. But if you scroll down a little bit, Mayor, you'll see most everybody, well, again, they talked about staff, but most everybody wanted to see like a water slide or a water bucket dump or something that didn't have to do with the pool, but would be activities younger people could do. So again, I presented this to our Park and Rec Committee on last Wednesday, and we are going to put together where we think we'd like to go for the first phase, which will probably be the shaded area. So once I get that together for the next meeting, then we'll go out and get some bids or whatever so that then they can go out for grants. Lots going on with the Park and Rec Committee.
Cool.
Let me get your other metrics up there for you, Terry.
Are you going to, do you have BDRC?
No.
I don't have anything.
Brandy,
BDRC.
anything from?
All right. So here are the metrics. As you can see, we're still pretty stable at the water. We had Ohio Rural Water in this week. Ohio Rural Water, as you know, is an organization that deals with villages, and it's a service that doesn't cost us money. But the gentlemen are either are previously water operators, wastewater operators, very intelligent. We have a rep by the name of Wes who came in, and had him go through our metrics with us for some suggestions. He also did some leak testing for us on our hydrants. But I really liked it because he really thinks our village has it together. So that made me feel kind of good. He goes, I see a lot of villages where nobody is on the same page, and at least here you're on the same page and your metrics look good. So we might see some changes next year because the EPA is requiring specific metrics, and we may change to that. But everything is pretty much same as last month. The only thing that was a quandary to me, if we go to page 2, Mayor,
Getting there.
okay, it's fine. This is South Central. I have no idea why our flows were down, but the cost of our electricity was up. So it doesn't, we had conversations about this, trying to figure out, okay, we have less flows going on, but now our bill went up. It was up 3.4%, as it was in the prior month. And for the year, it's up 34%. I have no idea what's going on. Brian and I had looked at those bills and thought, well, maybe there was a rate increase somewhere, and there was, but it was way back when. So I think that the line looks like it's starting to level out. So maybe this is just going to be norm. We'll keep an eye on it. So the next graph, page 3, is the water flow. And there's nothing unusual there. When it rains, we're up. When we don't rain, it's down. So it follows the water flow pattern. In August, we had no overflow events, but we only had 1.91 inches of of rain. So the next one's the utility report. If you notice, the line is going down. The metric is coming down for both the amount of money that's on the shut-off list and the number of accounts. It's still too many. This month and last month, we started hanging green door tags. I do not like green door tags. It takes time for my staff, who I have such a small staff anyhow. The issue is we do get results, because now for this month, we have recouped all of the delinquencies except for maybe a half a dozen. So what I tried to do this month is says, okay, why is everybody thinking they don't have a past due that's going to get them shut off? So Barb and Missy got their head together and put together this new layout or new format for our delinquent bills. And I'll pass this around, and it's mocked up with writing right now, but of course it'll be printed, but we had to mock it to send it off to Smart Bills. We're going to put everything in bold and in red that says this bill is past due. So the next time there's a shut off, they're not surprised. This time, the property at 201 West Liberty Street, Mr. Whitaker's property, all 3 units were on the delinquent list, so I shut the whole building off. What we gained from that is that we now have our external shut-offs there. I work with Community Action because one of the people that live there is pregnant. I explained to him that we needed to have external shut-offs, and he hadn't been cooperative. And so finally, Mr. Whitaker did hire a plumber, and we did get that done. So now all 3 of those units are on separate external shutoffs, and we can handle them that way. Community Action is still involved with the 1 unit. So I guess that's my metrics.
Any other old business?
No.
Come before the committee? No. Okay. Any new business?
Yeah, I wanted to go over the projects. Remember, I promised that at this meeting, we would go over the proposed projects. The last 2 months, staff has been working on projects, the proposed projects for 2022. This is the project list. At the top, it tells you what area it is. And I'll start with streets. So as you can see on streets, we have identified 5 streets for paving, around $180,000. I put over in the comments so that you could view how old the street, what condition the street is in, so you could understand why we chose it. On here is, as you will notice, Park, 275 feet. Our OPWC project, which is on hold right now, will pave all of Park Street up to East Cliff. That small portion beyond East Cliff was not included in the project. So the mayor brought it to our attention and that it needed to be done because of a resident's questioning of why we didn't include it, and it was an oversight. So we are including it next year for paving. So then it will be paved the whole length of the street. You will notice below it, those are the streets that we did not get paved this year because we could not get anybody to bid on the jobs. And so we're carrying that over. We had 222,000 identified for street paving. And so the money was there, we haven't spent it. So next year, it looks like we could do a lot of streets because we'll carry over our purchase orders for these streets plus the streets above that we want to pave. So again, you can see the bottom, the mayor asked me to put the total footage so you can see on it. So each one of the sections has the total footage that will be paving.
So combined, that's what, 9,000?
9,000 something?
Yep.
Right.
It's a lot of paving.
Yes,
Well,
we've been
and-
doing really, really well. I will put a report together with you to show you how much roadway we have paved and how much water line we have installed since I've been here. The other two items on the streets is I put the mower on, even though it's kind of a parks thing and cemetery thing, but our zero turn mower is on its last leg. So we need a new one. And then also the dump truck. I talked to Tim about the dump truck today. Our dump truck is about 2000 is the age of it. We use it for everything. We use it for snow plowing, hauling, you name it. The salt has just eaten the frame. Tim's had to put a new radiator in. There's just, transmission is now leaking. So the amount that you see is a dump truck that they have looked at for the 92,000. So that was also included in this 2022 budget. Again, these are proposed projects that the team would like to do. And so if you have any questions or whatever, you know, or you would like to know why we picked this over that, let me know. The one thing that we'll be doing with Brian as soon as he gets back in 2 weeks is we'll sit down with Brian and start incorporating this into the 2022 budget. If you remember, you already approved a 2022 revenue budget, and that's what we went by. You know, basically the revenues from last year, Brian just forwarded to the 2022, and we'll be sitting and going through this, these projects to make sure they fit in. I'm going to move on to the water because I don't want to take up safety. We have a lot in safety. So these are the water projects. I don't know if it'd be best if I read through each one of them or I have you look at them. But one of the things that I want to point out is the water line replacement Granville to water, 225,000. Right now, the total cost of all the upgrades that Joey wants to do is 375,500, which is way over what we were last year. Last year, we were at 147,500. The difference is that water line replacement to Granville. My proposal is that we submit this for this year's OPWC project submission. So in other words, we submit the project, this is what we want to do. If we get it, we do it. If we don't get it, then we move it out of this year into another year. So that's why his number of 375,500 is so large, or looks so large, because of that potential OPWC project, which I think we should submit it on.
What would our proposed share be on
And
this
that-
225? Because I mean, we can take the 225 from the 375 and figure out what we're at. In fact, you have it right there, 150. But what would our what would our proposed share of the OPWC be, so we know what to add to that 150?
And that I'll have to do the project up. The one project I asked for no loans, 100% grant. And I believe, Brian, you're on there. How much did you set aside for the OPWC park project? 75, 45?
Yeah, it was like 75,000.
75,000.
So we'd be up at about 225 total
Yeah, and
for,
last year we were at 147.5.
but a lot of that would be, I mean, 175 of that would be OPWC if we get it.
If we
Okay.
get it. And that's what I would suggest we do. We go out for an OPWC project for that. Okay. I want you to look at, I want you to come and, give me a call, send me a text if you want to know some more information. Again, these are proposed projects. I'm going to move on to the wastewater treatment plant, which I consider right now my problem area. Not that I think any areas are problem, but they just require more attention. Brad is at $475,000 right now. We cannot do that. Brad knows we cannot do that. The way we started this out is everybody made their wish list and everybody put their need list, and now this is what we're at. Last year, he was at almost about 200,000. So he knows he has to cut. So what we'll start doing over the next 2 weeks before Brian gets back here is start narrowing down this list. But this is what he says preventive maintenance is what we need. And we have to realize it's like a car. You don't drive a car without changing spark plugs or filters and stuff. And what's happened is the wastewater treatment plant has been driven for so long without preventive maintenance. And this will be our 3rd year that we have started focusing on the preventive maintenance. And there's just there are things that just were not designed correctly or done correctly in the beginning when the plant was installed. I don't know how else to say it. We had doors that were installed that the fumes are eating up. Somebody should have said, wow, we need this kind of metal to put on this door because otherwise the fumes are going to eat them up. So there's a whole lot of things we need to do.
Okay.
Okay, in red, you'll see an engineering study. The mayor asked me to look into an engineering study for the bioaugmentation and anaerobic digesters. So I had a meeting with V3 today, and I said, we have reached out to Suez because if you go to Google, and I know Google is always right, but if you go to Google and you Google that terminology, it comes up Suez. But once you get on that website that it takes you to, there's not a whole lot about the augmentation on it, the bioaugmentation. So what I have did is I've challenged V3, look into this, tell me what you think, what would it take to do a study? My only concern is I don't want to take a lot of money away from Brad right now because again, he has so many improvements he needs, but they are going to look at it and get back to me. So it might be next council meeting before I have an answer on that.
So when I looked at this, of course, Terry and I have looked at anaerobic digesters before, and that's what we can do with the stuff, the sludge and stuff afterwards. And there was actually someone that wanted us to build the plant so they could, sell it off and stuff like that. And then Wade has done a lot of research he sent to me on the bioaugmentation to help the bugs as they're going in and out of the plant. And what I don't know is what I don't know. Do we have the space for these types of processes? What would our investment be? And then most importantly, what would our return on investment
What's
be?
that gonna-
We might not get any return on investment. We might, make our money back or be able to reduce costs and preventative maintenance tenfold with the bioaugmentation. And it might take away from some of those other maintenance issues that pop up by introducing these other processes. But we just don't know. I talked to a couple of people to try to guesstimate about what it would be. And I'm not looking for, actual engineering plans of this is what you have to do all this. This is more of a proof of concept design. If you wanted to do one of these or both of them together, this is what would need to happen. these are what we would anticipate your costs be, and these would, which are what would, and we would anticipate your return on investment be, so that we could then decide, is that something we want to look at in the future and modifications to make? Prices I got were between $10,000 and $20,000 to do a study like that. And I think it's something we should look at doing, because we don't know what we don't know. And if we're potentially missing out on a way to reduce some of those maintenance costs and wear on the plant, and potentially sell and make some money back, or at least not lose as much at the back end of it with an anaerobic digester, I think it's something we need to look at. That's my 2 cents. If you got questions on the actual processes, I'm going to direct you to Wade, because he's the guy that sent me hundreds of pages of research, because he knows bugs.
I have 2 case studies from Suez, from their website. And these are in regards to using bioaugmentation products that they sell to industry. And it appears that, they give you a part number and everything. Buy this thing, add it to your process, and it increases efficiency. On this one, this case study, let's see. Biological oxygen demand removal of like 56% increase in their efficiency. And there's another one over here for another plant. And, there's also, some costs involved in it, but it also advertises a different part number for the stuff that you add. It's basically the same thing as like if you have a septic tank and you add stuff to your septic tank, right? Like enzymes and different bugs in here, and it helps that process, right? That's basically what bioaugmentation is for these plants. It's on an industrial scale. You add this stuff to the plant and it helps introduce the beneficial bugs and outcompete the bugs that are causing sludge bulking, and make your process a lot more efficient. So if you're not using up as much electricity to run the pumps, and you're not your solids and stuff are at the right level, and it's not stressing out your pumps, you're not using as much electricity, you're not putting as much wear and tear on the equipment by using these bugs or combination of bugs, enzymes, and whatever else.
So we're gonna have a new sewer plant to put sewer into our sewer plant.
I'm just talking
not a
about
new
taking a
plant.
bottle of stuff and dumping it in the process.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
what
talking
we-
There's
about.
an initial investment that ultimately.
What I'm saying is
But
these
we don't know what
products, I
that
think
is.
these products are like, you buy a gallon of something and you dump it in the thing, and it's the food and everything in there. You just have to introduce it under the right conditions. And that's what the study is for. So his idea of the anaerobic digesters is separate from the bioaugmentation.
Oh.
Yeah,
So he's talking about a new infrastructure. I'm talking about a commercially available, proven technology that you just dump in at the right time, at the right place, under the right conditions. And it does a job that, because of whatever, lack of retention times, or if you had a really good process going on, and then the system gets a shock, right? pH changes, temperature changes, and those bugs that were really happy, did a great job, all of a sudden they get outcompeted by another bug. It's going to do the job, but it's not going to be the best bug for the job.
and part of the problem we have, why we need the study on the bioaugmentation side too, is a lot of this is traditional wastewater plant. So how does those studies, we need to figure out how it works with our plant. Because where we could dump it in a traditional plant, we might not be able to just dump it all in our plant, because it works so differently. And that's part of the study, is to figure out how to get bioaugmentation in there, so it, like Wade said, reduces these costs. Things don't work as hard. We don't get that sludge build up.
Would this make our sludge more saleable maybe to other companies that want it or something?
Well, the quality of sludge, I
That's what the
mean,
study's for.
yeah.
That's what we
So
don't
what
know.
what you don't want is that sludge bulking. You don't want that. You want those bugs to eat all that stuff up,
You
right?
get mainly water.
Right.
So you're talking about basically adding 55-gallon drums of Rid-X, so it eats up more of the sludge. I'm using Rid-X as a brand name, but effectively looking at our system and saying what enzymes and what components should we add to it to get less sludge?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I say Rid-X because that's what residential
Right.
septic systems use, but they can test your output to say, well, if you add this, you'll get less output.
Right.
That's exactly it.
That makes sense. It's surprising that it hasn't already been implemented or recommended by the people who designed the plant, but
That's my
I guess
question.
that's government.
That's my question, because the Suez, I mean, I'm getting the info right from
Right.
Suez.
Will you send me that link to because I didn't see those case studies on there
So-
to share with the guys.
I've got printed off.
Okay.
ones.
So anyway, so that's up there for now. We'll wait and see what V3 comes back with the preliminary for, what it might cost to do these studies. But I think it's definitely something we need to make sure to include.
And our plant is very unique, right, within the state. You
Nobody
said there
else
were
has one.
two.
I think 5.
Well, I think there's 5 now.
But are they designed the same way as ours? I'm getting the sneaking suspicion that the design of this one was some kind of weird experimental design that somebody had a bright idea of selling to the village, and it wasn't really well designed to start out with.
You probably don't want to reply to that.
That's just my impression. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think you're far off.
I don't either.
Yeah. So
I would
anyways,
agree. We were kind of sold a bill of goods.
so
Thank the
that's
EPA for that.
that's up there. Terry sent it to V3, so we'll see what they come back
I
with,
talked
what
to
they
them about it.
what they think the cost would be to do that type of study for us next year. And that's why it's blank at the moment.
So moving on to storm I&I projects, this is directly from the information that I had shared with you that we were, as you know, the EPA is saying you have to do this. So remember the study that I shared with you? I think it was, what did you say it was, Rick? 180 pages or something like that? This is directly from that report. This is exactly what's contained in that report that we are going to need to do. Now, it's called phase 1. Notice it may take us into 2023 to complete this phase. We don't know how long it's going to take until we get started. One of the things that we did, and when we've been having meetings on it, is that we're going to try to reduce some of those costs by running the meters. Now, while flow meters aren't cheap to rent, they're not cheap to buy either. And after you buy one, then what do you do with it? So we're looking at the possibility of renting, which may help reduce this cost a bit. So again, the storm I&I is just exactly what the EPA is looking for. That is those steps, along with I think that we identified October 21st to March 2022. That's when we're going to monitor the sanitary flows. One of the things that we have to do is we have to establish a baseline for the dry season. So in other words, no rain. We have 6 locations, and between meetings, I'll get a map and show you. We have 6 locations where we're going to install these flow meters. That will help us get a baseline for dry weather. And then in the spring, when it starts raining, then we'll get a wet weather baseline. And that's what the EPA has asked us to do. It may be until the end of September or the 1st of January 2023 until we get all of that information around. So this is kind of a high level project, but we have submitted now to House Bill 168, which I anytime feel like we'll be hearing from them. The county engineer did say that he scored this project and our waterline project as in his top 10 projects for the county. So we did get that boost from him. So the other thing I did is we applied for a nomination to the Wpclf and WSRLA. And what those are revolving loans. Now you'll say, my goal is not to have any more loan burden on our residents. But, and here comes the but, if the EPA doesn't think we're moving along fast enough and they say, okay, you're gonna have to buy some more of this, you're gonna have to do this, then we need someplace to go get that money at 0%. For both of these grants, you have to nominate your project. What that means is we submit the project for nomination, they approve, and it sits there. So I don't have to take a loan, I don't have to do anything, but come the end of next year, if we need some money, and my project was, the nomination was accepted, then I have an avenue to go back and say, guess what, I can go get this money if we need it. So it's kind of a little bit of an insurance policy that I tried to help us with to make sure that if we need it, we got it. Okay. I want to move on to the cemetery because last year we didn't do anything there and the roof is getting worse in the mausoleum. What we decided to do, even though it does impact the character of the building, I think it still will look okay. We're going to put a sloped metal roof. We'd like to install that. We won't be having a conversation about the mausoleum leaking after that because that'll be around for a while. We can get that done for around $10,000, which is cheaper than I thought it would be. And then also the window repairs. Remember, we went back and forth on, do we fix the stained glass? Do we just take the stained glass out? So this is kind of keeping the personality there, but just protecting it with plexiglass, and that's about $600. So all in all, we probably need about $11,000 to get us through cemetery needs at Basel this year. I won't go over the pool because we had that in the previous, and the parks again are donations, and I'm not asking for money for anything for those. So
In land and buildings, I don't think we had anything.
land and buildings and zoning, remember this year we bought that zoning software. So we don't have anything for zoning, and land and buildings, we painted and repaired roofs all over, this roof, that roof. So those are kind of nil. So, and both of those would come out of general fund, by the way. So that's kind of my proposed projects. I would appreciate any input that you can give me. Again, we will start, weeding out some of the projects, especially in the wastewater treatment plant area. And go from there.
All right, well, I think that'll pretty much about do it for this committee. Anybody have anything else in lieu of motion to adjourn?
I would like to send you to adjourn.
All right. motion
Foreman
made.
seconds.
Foreman second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned, 7:01.
All right, you can start your safety.
Start the safety.
7:01, we'll begin our safety committee meeting. Probably roll call.
Hankinson,
Present.
Hamilton,
Present.
McCreary.
Present.
Okay, we also have the mayor and VA, police chiefs here. Brian's. So he's
There somewhere.
VA somewhere. And we also have Mr. Cosgray and Mr. Foreman and Mr. Mock has already left, so. Okay. All right, visitors, we got anybody online there?
Nope, just Rick and Brian.
Okay. Goals. Is, workplace accidents,
0.
okay. Traffic signs,
We'll be working on those just before we start picking up leaves.
okay, we'll keep on there. And, fatal accidents, I guess that'd be 0, since we have no workplace accidents. And, identifying truck traffic problems in areas. How we doing, chief?
We're actually doing pretty well for truck traffic. We kind of we've used social media, and we've also used the CB radio to get out to the drivers that we're enforcing the bridge and that area down through there. And very rarely do we have anybody that turns the wrong way if they're on Water Street off of Market anymore. So that seems to police itself.
And are other streets coming into town like Granville?
Haven't seen anything on Granville in a long time. Nothing at all.
Used to be quite a few to try to make that turn there.
There is, I haven't seen any on turning onto Granville. I saw a truck on might have been a Sunday morning, turning off right here in front of the station onto Water Street off of Market. But that was the first one I'd seen in probably 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's
So
really
it's-
died down.
Yeah.
So it seems to be, a sign seems to be working on what we got up. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we have more to put up too, so.
All right. Anybody else have anything for goals? Reports. Village administrator said she got a lot.
Well, what I like to do is I would like to allow the chief to go next because he has worked also on his, he doesn't call them projects, but items. So I would like to, chief, if you don't mind.
All right.
What I've handed out is proposed budget items or acquisition that just some things that are coming up. One of the first thing on here is fuel and the increase in fuel. Unfortunately, it's speculation at its best, but it's all over the place whereby, next Labor Day, we're going to be well over $4 an hour, $4 a gallon for fuel, which is possible, I think. But we just can't put an exact figure on it. I mean, I don't think anybody knows. Nobody has a crystal ball. But we looked at it. We looked at where we are. We looked at what we can do to decrease the amount of fuel that we're using. And it looks like we believe that if we use another $480 on top of what we had for last budget, that would give us a little room to breathe. If all of a sudden this bounces up, then we've got something we can fall back on. So that would be one of the things we would be looking at increasing. We've had, and some of you have been to the police department and some of you haven't. If you haven't, please stop down sometime and we're glad to show you around. But we have 2 copiers down there that probably should be in the Smithsonian. We are literally every day somebody is tearing those things apart and we're working on them, trying to keep it going. The one copier that we have, one of our patrol officers brought it in and got so tired of the other one, he brought it in, we hooked it up, we've been using it. I think we've about worn it out. It's a residential unit. The other one has a real bad habit of you're faxing things and it will give you a fax completed sheet. And then an hour or 2 later, you get a phone call and they go, we never got it. And what it's been doing is it's batching the faxes. It's like storing them instead of transmitting them. The aggravation with that is when we fax, we can't fax like a whole stack of things. Now what we have to do is we fax 1 page at a time. So if I got a 20-page report, I fax a page, take it out, fax a page. Needless to say, it eats up a lot of work time. And the other side of that is it doesn't exactly make us look like the most professional group of people in the world. So we looked at all kinds of options, including buying another fax. We need one that obviously faxes, copies, scans, because that's all things that we do for whether it's the coroner's office, prosecutor's office, whoever it may be. Those are things that are just absolutely something we have. We only have one that is color capable, and that's the one that the officer brought in. This other one sold it. It's black and white only. After looking at everything, and I got with Terry and we talked about, and a representative from the group that supplies the copiers here in the building here at City Hall came down and talked to me for a little while. What we discovered is that we can get a contract with them for $64.75 a month, where they come in, they'll put in a new copier. We're going to go from 2 copiers to just 1. It's much more efficient. So we're not going to be constantly replacing the cartridges in it, which with the older ones, anybody's had an older copy or notice every time you turn around, you're throwing those in, and those things are getting outrageously expensive. The other great thing is if we have an issue, we simply call them up. They come in and they fix it, and if they can't fix it, they'll put another one in. So I think that in the long run, it's going to save us money. It certainly is going to make it much easier for us to complete tasks down there. And it's also, instead of somebody maybe having to put a couple hours in trying to get something to work and trying to get something to fax, we're reducing that to minutes. So that's more time that they're capable of going back on patrol. The yearly cost for that, which includes the repair maintenance component, is $777. If you start looking at copiers, a office style, professional style, whatever you want to call it, copier, I mean, they cost what a new car used to cost anymore. So
The number on your sheet's been updated because that was $286 a month.
No, you have the wrong sheet.
yeah,
The new
that's
sheet
that
is
one.
$64.75.
We got that after that came out. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
that
so
was the
they-
original quote.
Okay, so that was the original set. And so everyone knows, hey, who uses a fax these days? Because who uses a fax? Sadly, law enforcement still has to do it because there are things that I can email that law enforcement can't, which includes criminal histories and some sensitive stuff. They won't, there's actually a law against emailing some of that, but
Go over the internet.
it won't go over the internet.
Mhm.
Even though if the chief faxes it to me, it comes to my email,
Mhm.
it's still considered a fax, so it complies. But you can't email it. So that's why they still have to maintain the fax.
And ultimately, it's kind of from where it's being transmitted.
Yeah,
So as long as we are faxing, then
yes.
we're good. Phone system, the phones we have are somewhere from the 1980s. When I first came down there, I had two old phones that we had when we built our first house, which was in 1986, and we still have those phones down there today. So there's a lot of things that they simply will not do. It's a one-line system. There's a lot of things we would like it to do, and looked at several systems. The modern systems are much nicer because of some of the things you can do with them. The system allows, the one we looked at, it allows each officer to have a personal voicemail that they access either at the station or from their phone. They simply call the number, put in their code, and it will give them their voicemails. So that's a huge step forward. We're constantly getting calls from prosecutors' offices, judges' offices, whatever. And then they're waiting to come back in, find out what's going on, whatever. It still allows for rollover to the dispatch. So if somebody was to call in, they need a car dispatched, it will still roll over to our dispatch. So it doesn't stop that at all, or have any interference with that. It has one of the things that's interesting is with the system I looked at, it has the ability to put an information button. So in other words, you would call in, it would say, if you're talking to whoever for information about things in the village, push this button. We can put everything from, what the snow is doing to street closures, to water breaks, to anything we want. It's a matter, and if I'm sitting at home and somebody calls and says, hey, we just dug up whatever street, it's a matter of dialing the phone up, putting a message on it. Anybody that pushes that button, it will come up and it will repeat that message. So it's a good way to communicate, I think. Also, things like, trick or treat, parade detours when we're having, different things up here, whatever. It's just a good reach out to the community kind of thing. And that's one of those things that's included.
Hey, Terry,
Yes.
since our system here is now VoIP and we have a VPN to the police department,
Mhm.
can't ABC do all of that with phones and just tie the police department in with our village phones at a cheaper rate?
I'll have to ask.
I mean, that way it's all one system, one phone bill. Everything the chief just mentioned is something we can do on our system. So that might even be even more savings.
I guess we'll have to talk.
Again,
Okay. Well, if we end up going with this system, it's a little bit below the 1,400 mark. That includes 5 telephones, what they call a master phone, which is where you control everything from, and all of the technology that I just mentioned. Computers, we're slowly but surely coming out of the 1990 on our computers. The problem that we have is because we have leads information, we have OLEG information, criminal history type things. We have to have certain firewalls and certain ability for them to come in and put their own firewalls up. The 2 of the computers we have currently, well, one of them, we just took it offline because it was so old. One of the computers that we have down there is at a point that I'm relatively sure that when they audit next time, they're going to shut that one down. They're not going to let us use it anymore. That would leave us with 1 computer that's actually for roots and all that information, data, whatever to come in. And that's absolutely not going to work. So when I had talked to, is it Mike? What did you say?
Mike or Sean, probably Sean.
Sean, it was Sean. We talked about what we needed down there, something, and obviously we can't buy a computer in a box. It's just because of what we deal with. So he told me that top end would be somewhere around 3,500, but it could be in the high 2s, 28, 29, depending on where we go. So anyway, we actually need 2. But my thought was if we get one this year and then we wait till next year and get another, then that we can get by on. We've been getting by on that one. So that would give us the ability to stretch that out a little bit. And we all know when you buy a computer and you take it home, if you paid $500, it's now worth $150 or something. So the technology changes that quick, but that would keep us in the loop where when they do their auto updates, we should be good easily for another 4 to 5 years before somebody would have to come in and do something with that unit on a hands-on situation. So training, we have a training budget. The problem is the state of Ohio is completely all over the world with their training. One day we're going to do this, the next day we're going to do something else. And it creates real problems for us trying to administer that because a lot of this is mandated training. Now I'll start with, we had, I think almost everybody here would remember Sergeant Wagner when he was here, Scott. Well, Scott was our firearms guy. And one of the big things with him was he threw. So Scott was the only rifle person that we had for rifle training. And as you know, we switched from shotguns to rifles. So and that switch has been probably 6 years ago now. Well, we have no rifle instructor. So we talked and decided that we were going to send somebody, and Lieutenant Rogers said that he would be willing to go do that. The good thing with him is he's clearly not going to be here today, gone tomorrow. I mean, he's been here 30 years or something, so it's not like he's going anywhere. But to send him, that's going to cost us about $600. It's the fee for the class, plus you have to supply your own ammunition. And I will be brutally honest, I really estimated that ammunition high because it's like pulling teeth trying to get rifle ammunition right now. So, but about $600 to get that done. Now, this thing has been like an albatross around my neck. So we've got these 2 beautiful police bicycles and we got our LiDAR and it's all ready to go. And then we discovered that they have changed what the state wants you to do as far as utilization. So now for officers to utilize those bikes, they want them to go through the bicycle officer school. The closest one is in Delaware, Ohio. It's $390 a piece. We have to take our own bikes up there. But at the end of the day, they're certified to ride. And it's not a get on your bike and ride. It's how to use it in a crowd control situation. It's how to use it to fire from, how to get on and off the bike in an emergency. There's a ton that goes with it. It's a really intense. We had a bike corps at Westerville. I was not on it, but I went up and watched them train. And they literally ride upstairs, they ride downstairs. I mean, stairs. They ride through ditches, through culverts. I mean, it's crazy some of the stuff that they have to be able to accomplish. But at the end of the day, I think for a whole lot of reasons, one of which is worker comp issues and things that may come, we need to make sure that we have that piece of paper in their file showing that they're certified and trained. I'm going to put
Everyone that does a bike has to be trained.
Yeah.
It's not like training them like Roger for the rifle and then they come back and.
No, it's not a train to trainer. You actually physically have to go to the class
Okay.
and ride the bike. So that one is different. Now, he can come back and he can teach all the rest of us because it's a train the trainer. Just like I'm a firearms instructor except for rifle. So I can teach all the firearms except for rifle. And that's kind of where we fell down a little bit. Ultimately, the training that we know of is about $1,380 above and beyond what we would normally have to spend or would spend or anticipate spending. So that's where that number comes from. Now, I'm going to put this out here only because, again, state of Ohio is all over the planet and it's day by day I get something different. So we go through a thing called CIT training, which everybody said, okay, that's going to be your diversity training. That's going to be everything. Well, then they came back and said, no, we don't think we want to do that. The governor's office a while back started a consortium, for a better word, of people who are trying to come up with ideas for training for police. Now they're looking at a thing that will be called diversity de-escalation training. We know that it will be held right now. We're being told that it'll be held at remote locations. I don't know why they're not just doing it like in a Zoom type setting or whatever. I think it would make just as much sense. But anyway, that's probably coming at this point. We've been told to, plan for it. The downside on that, we have looked and there is no state or federal funding source that's out there that we can identify that will pay for it if it's very expensive. So we're just gonna have to wait and see on that. We don't have any idea.
So they push it, but they won't fund it.
Yeah, and you'll find that the state of Ohio is pretty, they're pretty good about that. They'll come out and say, and I'll give you this 5-cent story before I move on. So I used to be a pursuit driving instructor, and we used to go out and teach guys to drive and not run over people is basically what it was, when it was safe to pursue, when it wasn't. So the state of Ohio in their infinite wisdom came out and said, you may not teach that unless you're driving a Chevrolet Caprice police car. And I was at the meeting where they were talking about that. And I'm like, it's kind of weird because everybody drives different cars, but they come up with this car. So we're looking at each other because we know something they don't. And that was that 2 years previous, they discontinued the Chevrolet Caprice police car. So there were none. So they had a class that you couldn't even get a car to drive. That's kind of, for 40 years I've been dealing with a PATA. That's pretty much the way it works. I think everybody's aware, I know you guys are aware that we are supplying police service for Thurston. And so far it's been working out really well. We've got some really good comments over there from people in their village. So that seems to be working well. So what we did is we came back and looked. Our goal has always been to get back to a point where we have 7 days a week of 20-hour, for right now, 20-hour coverage. And that would be from 8 in the morning to 4 in the morning, because from 4 in the morning to 8 in the morning, we have almost no calls for service. It is extremely rare that we get any kind of a call for service. It is also a dead time. So if there would be a call, the probability is much higher that there's going to be a sheriff's car available if they'd have to send somebody up on an emergency. So when we factor in our 2 contract villages, what we have budgeted here, and we come back and look at that, we're there. I mean, we now have enough people that we can do that. It's a matter of funding it, plugging it in, and having people know when their shifts are. A part of that, and we've had long conversations about this in here. The policing world is very much like the fire or EMS world. You go to work at 8 and you come home whenever your job's done. So you're going to have situations where we have a situation that could be something very simple. We have a major water break and we've got to help close streets off. And I've got 2 people here that I didn't know were going to work for 5 or 6 hours longer. We have a homicide. We have a suspicious death. I mean, the list goes on, a bank robbery. All of those really eat up your budget. So when you budget that, you have to project out and expect that there is going to be overages. I mean, you just expect it. The good part is at the end of the day, obviously, if we don't spend it, it all goes back in the general fund anyway. So when I looked at that, put everything together and factored in what the amount would be for unforeseen emergencies, we are about $2,100 from having that 20-hour day coverage. That would cover us. So
And that goes into the part-time.
yeah,
budget
that
side.
all goes into the part-time. So I think $2,100 to finally get back to that sort of coverage, that the lady evening coverage is, in my humble opinion, a bargain. And it's something we've struggled to do here for a long time. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the total increase of budget, counting this, would be 3.73% above the 21 budget.
I mean, what you presented is nothing outlandish. Just like the sewer plan, you gotta stay ahead of stuff. So, I mean, I don't have any problem with what you propose. If we can give Brian and give us some money.
Yeah. So what we'll do, because the service projects are mostly enterprise stuff and still working on that, and police comes out of the general fund. So we'll start factoring these in when Brian comes back into the budget spreadsheet, along with this, the service ones and
The
utility.
ones that do go into the general fund, but
Yeah.
we'll get on it so that our goal is to try to have a budget to you. And I don't know, Brian, are you still there?
Yeah.
So if I say we'll have a budget in 3 weeks, will we?
Not, well, if I work on it really hard, probably.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
you're home for 2 weeks. What else could you
Well,
be doing?
I know. I also got to keep up with everything else too.
Okay.
I-
That's our goal. To get it.
I can start out. Yeah, I've been thinking about that. It's that time of the year to start working on next year's budget. So that's on my to-do list.
We've been working on it for
Yeah.
months.
All right.
All right.
Okay, I don't see anything wrong with what you propose. So
Thanks.
that's good.
Good job.
Good. Anybody have any questions for the chief? You got anything?
I got one thing, if you don't mind if I say something.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
The barking dogs in town is getting to be out, and you probably know that, especially in my neighborhood, I tell you that. Both the back end and front end.
Yeah, and we urge people, if it's, I mean, we've all, I shouldn't say we all, most people own dogs, and occasionally they bark. But when you get a habitual barker, people really need to be calling us. What we've discovered is that instead of citing them into court here, if we call Humane Society guys, the animal control guys, and have them come out, they cite them into municipal court. And one trip down there and you won't have a problem again, because their fines are like 3 times what they are.
So there's 2 phone numbers. You got the dog warden, you got the Humane Society,
Yeah.
because I called the dog warden, he told me to call you.
Well, Humane Society, we work very closely with. I have never had an issue that I haven't. We've got, one of the problems we've got no, here's the silliness of it. We've got no way to transport a dog.
Yeah.
So if we find a dog and there's an issue with it, whatever it may be, there's nothing I can do with it. I cannot put that in the back of a patrol car. The second part of it is, even if I could, I am not allowed to take it to the police department, because we do not have a cage, watering, or food or exercise area that is approved for a canine. And if you don't have that, they will ring you up big time. So,
Can't take out a country train loose, can you?
Not a good idea.
yeah, probably wouldn't be good.
Dog
Right.
napping.
But if you have problems, or you're hearing anybody having problems with that, tell them, call us,
I'll have
let
to
us
call
deal
you.
with it.
'Cause they're-
Okay, he's calling you.
none of my neighbors will.
Okay. All right. Now, let's get information here.
So I have one thing.
Okay.
And I'll talk fast and maybe we can carry it over to council. We have been talking about the Basel Street situation with the one-way for the, on the two different situations. One is the one-way traffic on Canal. The other one is the bank.
Correct.
All right.
That's what we get down there.
Right. So one of the things is that we met today for a final, what are we going to do with the chief and Tim and myself? And I reached out to our sign people because one of the suggestions were, we need a sign that's gonna blink when it says a car's coming up the hill. Well, my sign people tell me that that is such a sophisticated sign, the cost of that would be outrageous. So the chief had a really good idea, or Tim, I forget which one, wasn't me, but to come up with a sign that says hidden driveway and then having blinking lights on it, you know, and we could put it right there so people could be aware that it's a hidden driveway. So something like that would cost us about $225, $230 to install. The other thing we talked about was the mirror. And there is a post that is right there by the old hardware store that Tim thinks we can mount the mirror on, which would help the people coming out of the bank parking lot. So again, we have percentages of coverage or whatever you call it that I
It's
learned today.
deflection.
Deflection that we would have to adhere to, but we still think that we could put the mirror right there on that pool. And that would help the people coming out, they could see the cars coming. So together, those two items would total $848.64. And that would be for a flashing sign to alert you there's a hidden driveway and also a mirror that would help you see if there's oncoming traffic. And that is what, unless I'm not speaking for you, but that is what we think would be a good starting point to try to do over in that area.
Okay. Just a quick suggestion. I know we're not coming. Maybe if you had that flashing sign, hidden driveway, and we change that speed limit from city street supposed to be 25 miles an hour.
Mhm.
We lower it down to, I mean, you post that with the hidden driveway, speed limit is like 20 miles an hour. It's like, if you can stop for a kid at 20 miles an hour, you gotta be able to stop for a car pulling out or backing out 20 miles an hour.
It's not a state route. We could lower that.
Yeah.
We only have the issues on the
City
state
street.
routes
Mhm.
that we can't lower them.
It's a county road.
Yeah, but it's a.
But it's county road in the
As soon
village
as
that
you
we
enter,
maintain.
yeah, it'd be a city street as soon as you cross that boundary.
So
So,
it's just something to think about.
so we
before our
could
next
do
meeting.
that.
Mhm.
You're talking about putting a flashlight like at the bottom of the hill when they're going up it, or what, where?
Maybe after Canal Street,
Yeah, right. at
just
Canal
right
Street.
before you get to that area.
Mhm.
So that way they ain't racing up to make that light.
That's what we talked about.
We did, we
So-
talked about that.
That way they're being warned that the head driveway and the speed limit is 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So I think that with all of these suggestions and these two improvements, we have did our due diligence as a village to try to make that as safe as we can over there. So I would like to have a motion from somebody to go ahead and purchase these items.
I would like to move to purchase those items, to put it that, I guess it's not an intersection, but they're on Basel
On
side.
Basel Road.
Yeah.
Basel Street, sorry.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that's to take to council. All right, roll call.
McCurry,
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Pinkenton.
Yes.
Thank you. I think this will go a long way with helping that issue.
Oh, good.
That's all I have, sir.
All right. Our next meeting is October 25th, right after service. Meeting adjourned.
7:32. Does everybody need a couple minutes before we do
Yes,
council?
please.
Okay.
Another bank,
Sorry.
'cause I know.
I've
it.
never-
almost didn't recognize this
I
lady.
know.
You're right.
Last week's meeting. I'm sorry I wasn't there.